These small changes can save you big money. That might sound simple, even obvious, but behind that sentence lies the difference between people who feel constantly drained by money and those who, step by step, build a cushion that protects them for life. Many of you watching this video may have felt the stress of looking at your bank balance and wondering where the money went, despite working long hours, despite feeling you didn't spend extravagantly. That confusion, that weight in your chest, is exactly why we are here. Finance Fuel exists for one mission: to give you the financial fuel to go further, to break free from money worries, and to live with confidence that every decision you make with your dollars is serving your future. I've been in finance for over 2 decades, and I've watched patterns repeat across generations, across borders. From Wall Street boardrooms to small family kitchens in Middle America, from the gold markets in Dubai to real estate developments in Asia, the same truth keeps showing up. Money leaks not through one big hole, but through 1,000 tiny cracks. It's rarely one bad decision that drains people. Instead, it's the unnoticed habits, the little daily choices that seem harmless until you look back after 5 years and see thousands of dollars gone with nothing meaningful to show for it. Frugal living isn't about deprivation. It's not about clipping coupons endlessly or denying yourself every comfort. Real frugality is wisdom. It's about building discipline where it matters, so your money flows into things that grow your life, not things that vanish the moment they're bought. Think of it like tending a fire. If you waste logs carelessly, the flame burns out too soon. But if you place them with intention, your fire burns bright all night long, warming everyone around it. Let me give you an image. Imagine you're on a long road trip across the United States. You've got your car, you've got your map, and your goal is to reach financial freedom. Maybe that means paying off debt. Maybe it means buying your first home. Maybe it's simply having peace of mind. Along this road, there are gas stations everywhere, and each one is selling fuel. Some offer fuel that burns quickly, that tempts you with flashy packaging, but leaves you stranded miles down the road. Others offer steady, reliable fuel that carries you much further. Frugal living tips are like choosing the right fuel. Each choice might feel small, but together they determine whether you reach your destination or get stuck with the tank empty. What I want to give you today are not just tips, but shifts in perspective. Because when you understand the why behind a frugal choice, you stop feeling like you're giving something up and start realizing you're gaining control, you're buying freedom. Over the years, I've seen investors make millions and lose millions. I've watched people who lived in huge houses filled with luxuries feel more trapped than a worker in a modest apartment, because the wealthy one had no discipline, no brakes on their spending, while the modest one built habits of intention. Guess who slept better at night? It wasn't always the person with more zeros in their account. When the markets collapse, and I've lived through the dot-com crash, the 2008 housing meltdown, the chaos of cryptocurrency winters, those who survive are the ones who practiced frugality before they were forced into it. They built a mindset that every dollar is a seed. Some seeds you eat today, yes, but many you plant so they grow trees that feed you for decades. If you don't plant those seeds, if you eat them all because you think tomorrow's harvest will somehow appear magically, then when the storm comes, you find yourself hungry, desperate, blaming the world. That's why I say frugal living isn't just about saving, it's a kind of insurance for your spirit. It shields you from panic. It keeps you calm when others are frantic, because you know you have built quietly day by day a reserve. And that reserve over time becomes the down payment for a home, the investment in an index fund, the seed capital for your business, the buffer that lets you say yes to opportunities others cannot touch. So today, as we walk together through these 20 frugal living tips, don't just hear them as tricks to save a few bucks. Hear them as a language of freedom. Each one is a key, and as we gather them, you'll see how they fit together into a door. Behind that door is a future version of you, one who isn't counting pennies in fear, but one who directs dollars with confidence. Stay with me, because this journey we're about to take could be the most valuable lesson you ever learn about money. And as we move forward, I'll show you not just the mechanics of how to cut waste, but the deeper reason why it matters, and how, without realizing it, you could be letting thousands slip through your fingers each year. When I think about the root of the problem, I remember a young man I once met in New Jersey, early in my career. He was earning a decent salary, nothing extravagant but enough to live on comfortably. Yet month after month he found himself with nothing left, sometimes even dipping into credit cards to cover basic bills. He couldn't understand why. He wasn't out buying sports cars, he wasn't gambling, he wasn't living in a mansion. But he was always broke, always stressed. I sat down with him and we went through his expenses line by line. What we discovered wasn't shocking in any single detail, it was the accumulation. A daily stop for coffee and a bagel on the way to work, eating lunch out instead of bringing food from home, upgrading his phone to the newest model every year, paying for multiple streaming services he barely used, and buying clothes on impulse because of seasonal sales. None of these things seemed disastrous. But add them up. Over 12 months, these habits consumed nearly $10,000. $10,000 that could have been invested, used to pay down debt, or saved toward a home. $10,000 that slipped away quietly, without him even feeling it. This is the silent trap of modern living. It's not the one big purchase that ruins most people, it's the slow leak. It's like a boat that looks sturdy when you first step in, but has a small hole underneath. You don't notice at first, until hours later, you realize you're sinking. That's how financial stress works. By the time many people see the problem, the water is already up to their neck. And the irony is that we live in a world filled with noise telling us the opposite. Social media flashes images of luxury vacations, cars, designer brands, and experiences that look glamorous. The culture whispers constantly, "You deserve this, treat yourself, don't miss out." And yet, what those images don't show is the debt behind them. The restless nights, the anxiety that comes from never having a cushion. I've watched markets all over the world. In 2008, when the housing bubble burst in the US, some of the people who lost their homes weren't reckless gamblers. They were ordinary families who had been persuaded they deserved more house than they could afford, who took on loans with thin margins, believing tomorrow's paycheck would always be enough. But when the tide turned, they were left stranded. Meanwhile, those who had practiced restraint, who bought homes within their means, who kept a savings buffer, survived. They weren't necessarily smarter. They were just disciplined, willing to say no when others rushed in with yes. This is why I call frugal living a shield. In a booming market, you might not see its value. You might even feel silly cutting coupons or saying no to dinners out when everyone around you is spending freely. But when the storm comes, and history tells us it always comes, your shield is the difference between panic and peace. There's another story I'll never forget, from a woman I met in San Francisco during the early days of the cryptocurrency boom. While many people were gambling their rent money on coins they didn't understand, she quietly saved half her paycheck by living far below her means. She rented a small apartment, cooked at home, avoided lifestyle inflation even when she got a raise. With those savings she invested not just in crypto, but in index funds, in gold, in stable real estate investment trusts. By the time the crypto market crashed, she had already pulled out her profits and had a diversified portfolio backing her. Friends called her boring, but years later, those same friends came to her for advice because she had built something lasting while they were chasing the rush. The root problem is not just spending, it's mindset. We've been taught to measure our success by what we display, instead of what we quietly accumulate. We've been conditioned to believe that if no one sees our wealth, it doesn't exist. And yet the real power of frugal living is invisible. It's not the shiny car in your driveway. It's the quiet confidence you feel knowing you can handle an emergency, knowing you're not trapped by every paycheck. When you truly grasp this, something shifts. You stop asking, "What can I buy?" and you start asking, "What can I build?" That question changes everything. Because the money you save through small, disciplined choices becomes the foundation for something bigger. And while everyone else is leaking $10,000 a year on habits they barely notice, you're quietly stacking bricks toward your freedom. As we move forward, I'll show you how to turn this awareness into action. Practical steps you can start today, not tomorrow. And once you see how much power these small changes give you, you may wonder why you didn't start sooner. Now that we understand the quiet leaks that drain our wealth, let's begin turning them into streams that feed it. This isn't about radical overnight changes, it's about layering small adjustments that together create enormous momentum. Imagine pushing a heavy flywheel. At first it resists, but with each small push it begins to spin, faster and faster, until the weight itself carries the motion. Frugal living works exactly like that. Start with the most immediate choices, the ones that repeat every single day. Coffee, lunch, transportation, these are the daily rhythms where small savings stack up into thousands over a year. If you spend $5 a day on coffee, that's over $1,800 annually. Now, no one is saying you can never buy coffee out, but if you brew at home most days and allow yourself a cafe visit as a treat, you've instantly freed up more than $1,000 a year. That $1,000 isn't just saved. If you redirect it into a simple S&P 500 index fund, compounding at an average of 7%, it becomes nearly $20,000 in 10 years. That's one tiny habit shift, one flywheel push, leading to life-changing results. The same goes for food. In the US, the average household spends over $3,000 a year eating out. Cooking at home, meal prepping, even something as simple as bringing lunch to work 3 days a week could save you half of that. Add those savings to your investment pile, and now you've doubled your financial fuel. People often underestimate how powerful consistency is. They look for a jackpot win, buying the right stock, the right crypto, the right real estate deal. But wealth rarely comes in jackpots. It comes in steady, disciplined strokes of the brush, painting layer after layer until the picture reveals itself. Then there are subscriptions, one of the most modern financial traps. Streaming platforms, apps, memberships, individually they seem harmless, just $10 here, $12 there. But when we reviewed accounts for clients, we often found dozens of subscriptions silently draining their bank accounts. Canceling unused services can save hundreds each year. More importantly, it teaches your brain to evaluate, am I really using this? Is this fueling my life, or is it just noise? Transportation is another lever. Do you need a brand new car every 3 years, financed with high interest? Or could you drive a reliable used vehicle and redirect the difference? Over a decade, that choice alone can be worth tens of thousands. And for those in cities, using public transportation more often, even just a few days a week, creates savings that add up. Think of it not as sacrifice, but as trading a little convenience today for a mountain of freedom tomorrow. Housing is the biggest expense for most households, and here is where frugality shows its deepest power. In the early 2000s, I watched young professionals in New York City stretch their budgets to the maximum for trendy apartments, while others chose smaller, more modest places. Guess who ended up buying property later on? It wasn't the ones who were living the dream in expensive rentals. It was the quiet savers who endured a smaller apartment, who roomed with friends, who prioritized future ownership over present appearances. Housing is not just about shelter, it's about positioning. Living below your means gives you leverage, the ability to step into ownership when opportunities arise. But frugal living is not just about cutting, it's about creating systems. Automate your savings so the money is gone before you can spend it. Treat your investments like non-negotiable bills due every month, the same way you treat rent or utilities. When your savings are automatic, your spending naturally shrinks to fit what's left. This one habit alone has built fortunes for ordinary people. And let's not forget the global perspective. In countries like Japan, there is a cultural philosophy called motonai, which means what a waste. It's a mindset of respect for resources, of using things fully before discarding them. Contrast that with the throwaway culture in many parts of the US, where replacing is often chosen over repairing. Adopting just a little of that motonai mindset, fixing, reusing, resisting the impulse to upgrade, can save thousands and instill a deep sense of gratitude for what you already have. I've seen the same principle in Latin America, where families pool resources, live multi-generationally, and share costs in ways that allow wealth to grow across decades. Meanwhile, in wealthier countries, the push for independence often leads to fragmented spending, each person carrying their own financial burden instead of sharing. Sometimes adopting a frugal mindset means learning from cultures where necessity bred resilience. The beauty of frugal living is that it's accessible to everyone. You don't need a finance degree, you don't need a six-figure salary, you only need awareness and discipline. Each choice, each saved dollar, is a seed. And when planted consistently, those seeds grow into trees that shelter you, feed you, and give you shade in the hottest summers of life. As we keep moving, I'll share not just the tactical steps, but the deeper lessons. Because money isn't only numbers, it's psychology, it's emotion, it's culture. And once you see that clearly, you'll never look at a dollar bill the same way again. There comes a point when saving money is no longer just about the dollars. It's about the story you are telling yourself about who you are and where you are going. I've met countless people who began with small, frugal habits, and over time, those habits reshaped their identity. They stopped seeing themselves as consumers chasing every trend, and started seeing themselves as builders, investors, and creators of stability. That inner transformation is what sustains the outer results. Because anyone can cut expenses for a week or two, but only those who understand the deeper meaning can keep walking this path for years, reaping the compounding rewards. Think of money like water. If you hold it in your hands, it slips through your fingers. But if you build a channel, even a small one, the water flows where you want it to go. Frugality is the act of carving those channels. Each decision to live intentionally creates a groove in your life, guiding the flow of your money toward investments, toward savings, toward security. Without those channels, the water simply spills out onto the ground, leaving you thirsty when the dry season comes. One of the deepest lessons I've learned is that frugal living creates not just financial freedom, but emotional freedom. When you know you can live on less, you stop being afraid. You stop fearing job loss, market downturns, unexpected expenses, because you've trained yourself to adapt, to stretch, to survive with dignity. This resilience becomes a kind of superpower. It allows you to take risks others can't, because your baseline needs are lower. I've seen entrepreneurs succeed not because they had more capital, but because they could endure lean years while their business grew. They didn't need instant success, because frugality gave them time. In the global markets, the investors who last the longest are not always the boldest. They are often the ones with the patience to weather storms, the humility to live simply even when profits soar. I once knew a trader during the gold rush of the early 2010s. While others bought luxury cars and celebrated every gain, he quietly kept his lifestyle modest. When the inevitable correction came and gold prices tumbled, those who lived lavishly were forced to sell at a loss just to cover expenses. But he, with his frugal habits, held steady. Years later, when prices recovered, he not only regained his wealth, but multiplied it. The lesson: frugality buys you time, and time is the most valuable currency in any market. There is also a metaphor here about trees. The strongest trees are not the ones that grow the fastest, but the ones with deep roots. Frugal living sends roots deep into your financial soil. It may not look glamorous above the surface, no flashy branches, no dazzling flowers, but when the storm comes, that tree remains standing, while the shallow-rooted ones are torn out. Every choice to live below your means is a root going deeper, anchoring you to stability. And yet, I don't want you to think of this as a life of grey discipline, stripped of joy. In fact, it's the opposite. When you live frugally, the joys you do choose become brighter. A meal out with friends feels special because it's intentional, not routine. A new gadget excites you because you truly need it, not because you were chasing the next release. By spending less often, you increase the value of what you do spend on. Life becomes sharper, richer, more textured. Here's the paradox. By saying no more often, you create room to say a more powerful yes. Yes to the trip you've dreamed of for years, paid for in cash instead of credit. Yes to investing in your child's education without burdening them with debt. Yes to seizing an opportunity when the market dips, buying assets others are forced to sell. These yeses are only possible because of the hundreds of quiet no's you practiced along the way. This perspective shift is what separates frugality from misery. Miserliness hoards for fear, but frugality saves for freedom. One is driven by anxiety, the other by purpose. And purpose is what sustains you when the excitement fades. Without purpose, saving feels like punishment. With purpose, saving feels like empowerment. I encourage you to see each frugal choice not as deprivation, but as investment. Not only in dollars, but in your own resilience, your own future peace of mind. Picture yourself 5, 10, 20 years from now, looking back at the small decisions you made. You'll realize those decisions weren't small at all. They were the very bricks of the foundation you stand on. And so as we near the final part of this journey, I want you to hold this vision. A life where money no longer dictates your choices, where you move with calm confidence, where you say yes and no with clarity, because you are no longer enslaved by every desire or every paycheck. That life is not far away. It begins with what you do next. Imagine, for a moment, waking up one morning and realizing that money is no longer the shadow that follows you everywhere. The bills are paid, the debt is shrinking, the savings account is growing, and your investments, slow, steady, patient, are quietly working while you sleep. That is the emotional climax of frugal living, the moment when pressure dissolves into clarity. And the most beautiful part is that it doesn't take a lottery ticket or a massive inheritance to get there. It takes choices, the kind you've already started considering as you've listened along this journey. When I look back at the people I've guided over the years, the ones who transformed their financial lives weren't the ones earning the highest salaries. It was the single mother who packed her own lunches, who cut cable and read books to her kids instead of buying toys, who funneled her small savings into a retirement account that grew like a tree over decades. It was the immigrant worker who shared a tiny apartment with 3 roommates, saving nearly every spare dollar until he had enough to buy his first rental property. It was the retired couple who chose to drive the same car for 15 years, redirecting what others spent on car payments into dividend-paying stocks that gave them income long after they stopped working. These stories are not outliers. They are possibilities available to anyone willing to embrace frugality as a tool, not a punishment. And perhaps you've noticed a theme. Frugal living is not just about what you save, but about what you create. Every dollar you don't spend frivolously becomes a worker for you. It can buy a fraction of a company through the stock market. It can purchase a small stake in a property that generates rent. It can sit in a high-yield savings account, quietly compounding with time. Each of those dollars is fuel, financial fuel, that powers your future freedom. That's why this channel is called Finance Fuel, because these small sparks add up to something far greater when they are gathered, directed, and ignited with purpose. I know some of you may still feel doubt. You may be thinking, but what if I fail? What if I try to live frugally and it doesn't change anything? To that I say this: the only way to fail is to not begin. Every step, no matter how small, puts you ahead of where you were yesterday. Even if you only save a few dollars this week, you have planted a seed. And seeds do not grow overnight. They require patience, sunlight, and consistency. But one day, you will look up and see the shade of a tree that you yourself planted. That tree will be your safety, your wealth, your proof that the quiet discipline of today became the abundance of tomorrow. So here is the invitation. As you finish listening, don't just nod and move on to the next distraction. Take one step right now. Cancel one subscription you don't need. Brew your own coffee tomorrow. Transfer $10 into savings today. Begin, and then share your journey. In the comments, tell me what one frugal change you're committing to. I want to hear your stories, your struggles, your victories. Because together, as a community, we create accountability and encouragement. And if you found value here, if something I shared sparked a new thought or gave you hope, subscribe to Finance Fuel. That one click is not just about growing this channel. It's about you staying connected to a source of financial fuel, a steady stream of ideas, stories, and guidance that will keep your fire burning. Because this journey is not one you should walk alone. Remember this: wealth is not built in a single dramatic moment. It is built in the quiet, consistent rhythm of choices. Every meal cooked at home, every extra dollar saved, every intentional purchase, it all adds up. The path is long, yes, but every step you take makes the next one easier. And one day, without even realizing it, you will arrive. You will wake up free, and you will thank yourself for starting today.